The young and the restless spoiler's shock in the labyrinthine corridors of passion and betrayal. Traci's heart had long been captive to a love that defied logic, a love that tethered her soul to a man whose true identity was as enigmatic as it was dangerous. For months, she had been infatuated with the charming figure known as Alan, yet beneath the veneer of romance lay a sinister secret. Alan was not who he appeared to be. Instead, the man she adored was Martin, a cold, calculating impostor whose true nature was revealed in the whispers of police reports and the sorrowful confessions of trusted friends. Martin, a murderer with a penchant for deception, had meticulously assumed Alan's identity, weaving a tapestry of lies that left Traci both entranced and vulnerable. Jack and Diane, the only voices of reason in her tumultuous world, had tried desperately to pull her away from the brink. With trembling voices and tear-stained faces, they had disclosed to her the chilling truth, information gleaned from confidential police revelations. They explained that Martin, the man Traci had fallen hopelessly in love with, was a dangerous impostor masquerading as Alan. According to their accounts, the real Alan was missing, and while no definitive proof of his death had been established, his presence had evaporated from public view. Only Martin held the key to Alan's whereabouts, a secret that cast a long, dark shadow over Traci's life. Despite the dire warnings, the allure of love and the desperation to fill the void in her heart drove Traci to make a fateful decision. In a moment of fragile defiance and unbridled passion, she secretly purchased a one-way ticket to Paris, the city of eternal romance, where every street corner whispered promises of rediscovered love. Yet, beneath the glimmering lights and picturesque landscapes, a trap had been laid. Martin's intricate plan was not simply to ensnare her heart but to lure her into a web of manipulation from which escape seemed impossible. The flight to Paris was symbolic, a journey into the unknown, where dreams and nightmares coalesced into one terrifying reality. Traci, caught in the throes of a love that had turned into an obsession, felt a bittersweet mix of excitement and dread as the plane soared across continents. With each passing mile, the remnants of rational thought and caution faded away, replaced by an all-consuming need to be near the man she believed was the embodiment of her destiny. The seductive promise of rekindled passion and long-forgotten memories drove her deeper into Martin's meticulously crafted snare. Arriving in Paris, Traci was immediately struck by the city's haunting beauty. The cobblestone streets, the echo of distant accordion music, and the soft glow of street lamps evoked images of a love story written in the stars. However, what appeared to be the perfect backdrop for romance was nothing more than the stage for Martin's cruel game. The city, once a symbol of hope and new beginnings for Traci, had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows where every corner held the potential for danger. Martin, ever the puppet master of deceit, had orchestrated this encounter with precision. His plan was simple yet diabolical: to lure Traci to Paris, where the isolation of the foreign city would leave her defenseless against his machinations. As she navigated the winding alleys and secret passageways of the city, Traci remained blissfully unaware that she was being led into a carefully constructed trap. Every moment that she spent chasing the ghost of her lost love, every romantic letter and whispered promise, served only to tighten the noose around her fragile existence. In a darkened hotel room that smelled faintly of damp wool and lingering despair, the inevitable happened. Traci, lost in her delusions of a love reborn, was ambushed. The room, meant to be a sanctuary of romance, became the stage for her nightmare. Before she could fully comprehend the danger that lurked in the shadows, the door was forcibly opened, and she was seized by unknown assailants. In an instant, the illusion of safety was shattered. The cold, hard reality of Martin's trap revealed itself in the form of stark, brutal actions, a kidnapping that left Traci disoriented and terrified. The subsequent hours were a blur of confusion, fear, and agonizing uncertainty. Traci found herself bound and isolated, her pleas for mercy echoing in the barren silence of a dimly lit room. The men who had taken her carelessly exchanged cryptic glances, as if sharing a secret too monstrous to voice. Their threat hung in the air, a silent promise of further torment if she did not comply with Martin's unyielding demands. For Traci, each minute stretched into an eternity as the reality of her situation sank in, a realization that the man she had loved was not only a liar but a dangerous predator. In that heart-stopping moment, as terror gripped her and her thoughts raced uncontrollably, Traci struggled to piece together the fragments of her shattered reality. The warning voices of Jack and Diane echoed in her mind, a stark reminder of the family and friends who had cared enough to reveal the hidden truths. Their words, laced with desperation and sorrow, urged her to awaken from the intoxicating dream that had led her astray. Yet, the grip of love, whether genuine or manipulated, was powerful and inescapable. Questions now swirled around her like a maelstrom. What did Martin intend to do with her? Was she merely a pawn in his twisted game, or did she hold a deeper significance in a larger, more insidious plot? As the minutes turned to hours, the threat of the unknown loomed ominously. Martin, hidden somewhere in the labyrinth of Parisian alleys or perhaps even closer than she could fathom, was the architect of her suffering. He knew the exact location of the missing Alan, a secret that had eluded everyone else, and that knowledge, now wielded as a weapon, left Traci with a bleak future. The question that haunted every desperate thought was simple yet terrifying. What was Martin's ultimate plan? With Traci now under his control, every possibility seemed to lead to further despair. Would he use her to leverage a twisted reunion with Alan, or was she destined to be sacrificed on the altar of his own sinister ambitions? The answers were buried deep within the murky underbelly of deceit, where truth was a rare commodity and every revelation carried a price. In the hours that followed, the city of Paris continued its indifferent bustle, unaware of the drama unfolding in its shadowed corners. Traci's inner world, once filled with the promise of rekindled love and the possibility of a new beginning, had now become a battleground of fear, regret, and relentless torment. As she fought against the bindings of her physical captivity, she also struggled to free herself from the chains of a love that had proven to be as dangerous as it was all-consuming. Her thoughts flickered back to the life she had left behind, a life where family and friends had cared enough to try and pull her back from the precipice. Jack and Diane's faces, etched with concern and sorrow, became her only beacon of hope amid the encroaching darkness. Their revelation about Martin's true identity and the mystery surrounding Alan was a lifeline, a desperate plea for her to wake up and reclaim the reality she had so foolishly abandoned. In the silent hours of that fateful night, as Traci's fate hung precariously in the balance, the harrowing truth loomed larger than ever. The very foundation of her existence had been built on a lie that had promised love and had delivered only pain. Martin's trap, intricate and merciless, had not only ensnared her body but also her heart, leaving her to grapple with the consequences of a love that was anything but genuine. As dawn's faint light began to filter through the cracks of the grimy room, Traci's mind raced with a single, desperate thought: she had to escape, to fight against the dark tide that threatened to consume her completely. But even as that resolve sparked within her, the oppressive question remained: what was Martin planning to do with her now? The terror of the unknown loomed large, and with it, the chilling realization that her journey, driven by an unquenchable thirst for love, might very well end in irrevocable tragedy. In the end, Traci's plight became a cautionary tale, a story of how the blinding allure of love, when intertwined with deception, can lead one into a labyrinth from which there may be no escape. Her story, set against the backdrop of the City of Lights, was destined to serve as a grim reminder that sometimes, the most dangerous traps are laid not by enemies but by the very desires that one holds closest to the heart. And as Paris slowly awakened to another day, the mystery of Traci's fate and Martin's sinister plans lingered in the air, a haunting echo of love turned lethal, and a question that remained unanswered: just what will Martin do next? Jack and Diane's warning rang in Traci's ears like a dirge that foretold doom. If you go to Paris, you must take full responsibility for your own life, they had said, their voices laden with both concern and resignation. They made it clear that they would not be dragged into her perilous quest for a love that had haunted her for over 50 years, a quest that had led her to believe that this time, maybe, she could finally capture the love she so desperately craved. Yet even as their words echoed with truth, the longing in Traci's heart burned too fiercely to heed caution. That night, as a storm brewed over Genoa, Traci sat alone in her dimly lit room. Tears traced silent paths down her cheeks as she composed a letter, a farewell and an apology all wrapped into one. Every word on that paper was weighted with decades of heartache, a lifetime of being deceived, mistreated, and abandoned by the men who had promised her a love she never truly received. Despite her successful career, a shining example of professional triumph, her personal life was marred by heartbreak. Love, to her, was a cruel illusion that always left her stranded in the ruins of shattered hopes. And so, with a heavy heart, Traci decided that the pursuit of love, even if it led her into danger, was a risk she had to take. With trembling hands, she folded the letter and left it on the kitchen table, a final testament to a life where love had been both her solace and her downfall. Jack, upon discovering the note, was overcome with sorrow. He read every line, his eyes brimming with tears as he realized that despite all the warnings, Traci's resolve was unyielding. In that fragile, bittersweet moment, Jack understood that Traci was setting off on a journey that might not only change her life but could also lead her into the darkest depths of despair. Traci's departure was quiet yet laden with the weight of destiny. Under the cover of night, she slipped away from Genoa, boarding a flight that would take her to Paris, the city that shimmered with promises of romance but hid secrets in every shadow. Jack and Diane's parting words still echoed in her mind, urging her to remember the life she had left behind, a life filled with genuine care, however limited, and safety that came from the familiarity of home. But the allure of love was too potent, a siren call that drowned out every cautionary whisper. As the plane soared over the vast expanse of the Atlantic, Traci's mind became a battleground of emotions. Her thoughts were a maelstrom of past betrayals and unfulfilled dreams, a vivid tapestry of every moment when love had betrayed her. For more than 50 years, she had watched as love's promise withered on the vine, leaving her with scars that never truly healed. Yet, within the crevices of her wounded heart, there remained an ember of hope, a desperate belief that Paris might offer her a second chance, a chance to rewrite the narrative of her lovelorn existence. But fate, as it so often does in Genoa City and beyond, had other plans. Unbeknownst to Traci, her journey was being manipulated by Martin, the very man who had masqueraded as Alan, a sinister impostor whose charm was merely a facade for deeper, darker intentions. Martin had woven his web of deceit with meticulous care, knowing that Traci's vulnerability was the perfect bait. Every step she took toward the City of Lights was a step further into the trap he had so cunningly laid. Once in Paris, the city's seductive ambience wrapped around Traci like a velvet shroud. The luminous streets, the romantic echo of distant music, and the intoxicating aroma of freshly baked pastries created an illusion of hope and possibility. But behind the sparkling facade, Martin's design was already in motion. In a meticulously arranged encounter, he set the stage for a meeting that would shatter any remnants of safety Traci believed she had. It wasn't long before the trap sprang. In a secluded corner of Paris, far from the bustling crowds, Traci found herself face to face with the man she thought she loved. But the look in his eyes was not that of a long-lost lover, it was cold, calculating, and devoid of the warmth she so desperately needed. Before she could even protest or escape, Traci was overpowered. The horror of the situation unfolded in mere moments, a sudden struggle, a sharp cry, and then an overwhelming darkness as she was forced into a vehicle under the command of unseen henchmen. What transpired next was a blur of terror and helplessness. Traci's senses were assaulted by the sounds and smells of captivity, the metallic taste of fear in her mouth, the cold touch of restraints that held her tight, and the palpable dread that seeped into every fiber of her being. The safety and solace of her familiar world had been ripped away in an instant, replaced by the grim reality of her entrapment. Martin's trap had indeed ensnared her, leaving her at the mercy of a man whose true intentions were as murky as the Parisian alleyways where she was now imprisoned. In the dim light of a damp, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Paris, Traci's fate took on a nightmarish clarity. The room was bare, save for a single, flickering light that cast long shadows on the cracked walls. Here, alone with her thoughts and the echoes of her own panic, Traci was forced to confront the painful irony of her situation. She had left behind a life of safety and genuine connection, driven by the yearning for a love that had always eluded her. And now, she was a prisoner in a game orchestrated by Martin, a man whose deception had ensnared her in a trap from which escape seemed all but impossible. The questions that tormented her were relentless. What would Martin do with her? Was she to be a bargaining chip in a larger, more sinister scheme? Each unanswered question deepened the dread that coiled within her chest. The chilling possibility loomed that Martin might use her as leverage to secure the truth about Alan's whereabouts or to further manipulate the tangled relationships that defined the lives of those in Genoa City. Every moment of silence in that forsaken room was a reminder of the cruel twist of fate that had led her here. Back in Genoa, Jack's anguish grew as he pondered the implications of Traci's departure and the potential dangers she now faced. The letter she left behind was a mosaic of regret, hope, and resignation. A testament to a woman who had long been ensnared by the very passion that had brought her nothing but sorrow. Jack's tears were not just for the friend he feared he might never see again, they were for the countless missed chances at happiness, for a life that had always been overshadowed by a series of betrayals and unfulfilled dreams. In a desperate bid to piece together the mystery of Traci's vanishing act, Jack and Diane delved into every scrap of information they could gather. Their hearts ached with the knowledge that Traci, despite her impressive career and resilience in the face of professional adversity, had always been vulnerable when it came to love. Time and again, she had placed her trust in men who ultimately left her in ruins. Now, with Martin's ominous presence looming large over her fate, the stakes were higher than ever. Was Traci now merely another victim of Martin's cold-hearted manipulation, or could there be a glimmer of redemption even in the darkest of moments? In the unfolding chaos, a single, haunting question remained: what had Martin done with Traci? The answer was shrouded in uncertainty, as the man who had lured her away from the familiar comforts of Genoa now held her fate in his hands. With each passing hour, the possibility of rescue diminished, replaced by a growing fear that she was caught in a spiral of events from which there might be no escape. As the city of Paris continued its indifferent rhythm, oblivious to the tragedy unfolding in its hidden corners, the lives of those left behind in Genoa were marked by an enduring hope, a hope that Traci would somehow find a way out of the darkness. Jack, Diane, and the rest of her loved ones clung to the belief that even in the midst of despair, the light of truth and love could eventually pierce through the shadows. Yet, the grim reality remained that Traci's search for love had led her into the jaws of a predator, and the answers to what Martin intended to do with her, and whether she would ever be freed, were tangled in a web of deceit that stretched far beyond the city's borders. In the end, her fate would not only redefine her own life but also cast ripples across the intricate relationships that bound Genoa City together. Traci's journey, from a desperate farewell in Genoa to a harrowing descent into Parisian captivity, stands as a stark reminder of the perils of chasing a love that promises everything but delivers only heartache. In a world where trust is a luxury and deception lurks around every corner, the true cost of longing for a love that seems eternal can be unimaginably steep. And as the chilling question lingers, what fate awaits Traci at the hands of Martin, one can only pray that somewhere in the darkness, a spark of hope remains, capable of lighting her way back to the safety and love she so desperately deserves.